from where we stand right now, I cast a few games of Mineski yesterday. I could expect to see a Invoker here out of them. I could expect to see a potential Doom out of them. We did see Skywrath being played a fair amount by Mineski yesterday, but they have options. They have an open draft right now. Sure, they're probably going to lose the first pick Doom to Kingdom, but Brewmaster and Shadow Shaman, they are both there and they are both available. We have seen how powerful they are, let alone in the last series I cast, in the last recent months.
Yeah, I don't know, the meta's developed to a point where it's pretty easy to expect what's going to be picked. As far as the first pick for Kingdom, instead it's going to be the Death Prophet. Leaving the Doom and Shadow Shaman both in the pool, I would probably expect Mineski to pick those two for themselves. But I don't know, Kingdom are going to invest very heavily into the push with this first pick.
Yes, they are, and the Death Prophet will certainly signify that they want to potentially brawl as well. We did see a build from actually Mineski yesterday where they opted for 4041 from the Death Prophet, opting for the ult at 9, which gave them unparalleled ability to brawl with the at level 8 being 404 with the Crypt Swarm. And if I remember the stat shown to us yesterday, it has a 75% or 70% win rate, and that's just going from my memory alone, which could of course be completely wrong. But nonetheless, flip side of the coin for Mineski, we do see Viper and Razor.
Honestly, I'm not a huge fan of both of these heroes picked up on the same team. They kind of offer the same as far as the role that they play. Usually you're going to see them being the mech carrier for their team, and they're going to win their lane more often than not. I assume one's going to the safe lane, one's going to mid, but I think they'd be better suited to pick another hero to take up one of those other lanes. I don't know, it seems a little top heavy. I don't know, we'll have to see how they end up penning it out. If they go for the mech on the Viper, that'll leave the Razor to pick up either an early BKB or Aghanim Scepter, which could be nice for the pushing power, or on the flip side, they could get the mech on the Razor and get the early Ags on the Viper. Or, I'm kind of hoping that Viper builds into more of a right-clicking damage dealer instead of the traditional tank Viper that we've been seeing a lot as of late. But I think it's just going to be flipping the mech between them two.
I reckon you're right on that one, and you mentioned it could be an early Ags on one of them. We could equally see a drum, which would help in terms of that push, which the mech and the drum on one team going into maybe first 15 minutes of pushing power for Mineski could certainly be very potent. But now, on the flip side of the coin, Kingdom will get themselves an Ancient Apparition. Now, doesn't synergize very well with the Death Prophet, but will certainly signify they're looking to snipe, looking to team fight. What do you think we're going to see off the back to pair with this Ancient Apparition for a support?
I don't know, I'm not sure if they need to really pair that much with the Ancient Apparition to make it effective. It's pretty much all about the ultimates. If they're able to hit it and be on the point, it's going to negate a lot of the tank coming out from the Viper and the Razor, mostly due to the mechanism heal being removed. I'd like to see a Shadow Shaman if it's still left in the pool to go with Kingdom's Ancient Apparition, but I doubt it will. I assume that that'll be banned out in the second stage.
It should be banned out in all honesty, yeah.
10 seconds
Hell, you got to consider for Mineski as well here, yeah, I was going to say Earthshaker being removed, the threat of the long-range defensive fissures compared and combined up with the potential for a cold feet. But what else comes to mind with the Ancient Apparition? Because we could see the older style of supports come in, the ones with that very effective single target stun and potential negative armor. The one, of course, I'm referring to being Vengeful Spirit. Could combo very well here with the AA.
Yeah, I think so. It would offer a decent amount to their pushing power as well. For now, Kingdom are going to leave both of them in the pool. So yeah, Mineski kind of get to pick which one they're going to let Kingdom have. If they're going to pick it up for themselves, I expect them to take the Shadow Shaman and then ban out another support that they don't want Kingdom to get their hands on. That said, they could also ban out the other pushing Prophet. The Nature's Prophet's still available. If Kingdom wanted to go for just a full-on pushing lineup, that could be a solid offlaner, but instead, they ban out the Timbersaw, something that I wasn't really expecting, but the Shadow Shaman is going to be picked up.
Well, Shadow Shaman is, in all honesty, too strong to not be picked up here. I mean, it has such a good ability to push towers with Mass Serpent Wards, to control fights with Hex, Shackles, and has the burst damage of the Aethershock. It's not to be underestimated in any way, shape, or form.
Yeah, for sure. I think Shadow Shaman is just a great all-around hero, and there's very little reason to not pick him up in the first stage, but if you leave him into the second picking stage, definitely snag him up, and if you don't, the other team probably will.
I completely agree with you there, but equally though, for Kingdom, we saw yesterday out of Timushi, I mentioned in the draft of the previous two games, they like themselves the Witch Doctor. Now, Witch Doctor would be very strong here in terms of Kingdom. They may not get the synergy between the two supports, but you consider what a Witch Doctor can bring to the table. Maledict, Death Ward, Voodoo Restoration, Keeley, as well as, of course, Paralyzing Cask. Could that be a good pickup here for Kingdom?
I think it would be solid as far as offering them the pushing power, but currently their push isn't really based on the summons, but sustaining the Death Prophet really would be solid. I think the biggest thing I'm missing if they do go for the Witch Doctor is a big AoE disable that'll make the Death Ward really be a solid pick. Honestly, if they pick it up, it would all be about the Voodoo Restoration and little else, with the exception of a Paralyzing Cask that gets some lucky bounces. But instead, they go for the Mirana. It's a start of a really good tri-lane, Ancient Apparition Mirana, but right now I'm missing the setup. I'd expect a Shadow Demon pick here.
A Shadow Demon or a Bane certainly does come to mind here. Bane would be very powerful for the same setup reason. I mean, Nightmare into Arrow is one of the nastiest combos I can think of in the history of Dota, maybe with the exception of, say, Shadow Demon Kunkka.
Yeah, definitely, and it would also give them 3 ranged heroes and presumably a pretty easy lane if they're going to get that setup. I don't think, even though Viper is generally seen as a lane dominator in a tri-lane versus tri-lane scenario with Shadow Shaman as one of his supports, they really can't get much out of that. But instead, they'll go for the Treant Protector. Not a huge fan of this pickup, to be honest, coming out from Kingdom. It's going to leave them lacking a lot of support for the Mirana Arrow. If they want to set it up, I really only see the Yule Scepter coming up from the Death Prophet being able to line up those arrows if they time it properly, but even then, for the majority of the early game, it is going to be just free-handed arrows, and, well, quite literally is going to be hit or miss.
I'd be inclined to agree with you, but the Treant does bring at least some early game ability to right-click. Sure, it's a Treant, it attacks slowly, but being punched by a Treant Protector at level 1 is very nasty, and he can just go into the off lane, and then he can have a safe lane potential Mirana combo, or an aggressive tri-lane Mirana and put the Treant in the safe lane. He'll then get an early level 7, potentially then use that to put living armor around, be able to use the early level advantage, get overgrowth maybe, look for a blink, could go into the whole initiator role that we would tend to see a Tide or, say, an Earthshaker take.
I don't know, definitely would be something interesting to see, and, well, now that you mention it, Tidehunter's still left in the pool. I'd assume Kingdom might be having their eyes on that Tide, if they want to go with the more traditional route and have the Treant Protector as a support. But on the side of Mineski, they go ahead and pick up the Centaur Warner. Their 3 cores are going to be very tanky, either just by being innately so, or by the way they're going to build. Presumably the Razor and the Viper are going to get very large tank items for themselves, and they're just going to be running at Kingdom. I don't know, Death Prophet has enough damage in order to back up that and combat against that. And if the Ancient Apparition ult lands well in a team fight, they might be in a little bit of trouble. But I don't know, Gigabyte and Mineski have a very beefy lineup.
Very true, and it's the kind of tanky push style that I've come to expect from a lot of teams, specifically teams like Team Coast, and when you think of the Europe scene. They like to do the same thing, Centaur, they do run the Chen occasionally with Steph style on that, but it's the very similar style, tanky kind of push. However, they're using the Shadow Shaman instead of the Chen, for example.
Yeah. I don't know. We're still waiting on the last support, presumably, coming out from Mineski. I don't know. It's pretty open to them. Potentially a Wraith King would be really nice for them. The extra lifesteal could benefit them, as well as just having a really solid roaming support duo in the form of the Wraithfire Blast into the Shackles combo. Fairly easy to bring down single targets. I think the majority of the other top tier supports have already been banned out. The ones that you'd want to pair with the Shadow Shaman are presumably the Earthshaker and the Skywrath Mage. But we'll just have to see. It is going to be the Witch Doctor for them, so we're going to see that Voodoo Restoration sustain.
Well, the Voodoo Restoration sustain is one thing. You've got to consider. You've got Centaur for initiation, you've got Shadow Shaman for lockdown, Cask as well now to throw into the mix, and then you've got Death Ward on top of it all. This could be a very powerful combination for Mineski here, if they can protect the Witch Doctor while he channels the Death Ward. That's the key thing.
Yeah, currently, they don't have the best ways to cancel it. They have the Treant Protector ulti as well as the Mirana Arrow, but both of them are going to be
10 seconds remaining.
iffy for canceling the Witch Doctor channeling. Death Prophet, if she picks up the Yules, that's going to be a nice instant way in order to stop that, but then again, she's also going to have to walk pretty close and going to eat some damage from the Death Ward at the very least. It's all going to be about the Witch Doctor's positioning, I feel, if he's going to get off a good ultimate, but we're going to see an Ember Spirit coming out from Kingdom.
2 games in a row with Ember for me, and if this goes late, I hate to say it, but there is potential for another DR, which is probably going to kill the remainder of my voice.
I'd love to see it. I wasn't casting as far as the first series was concerned, but I caught the last end of it, and wow, what an ending. Double Divine Rapier on a Lich. But yeah, I'll say that much. If you want to watch the game, it will be uploaded to YouTube later on today, so...
I'll ensure the VOD gets up there. That is one hell of a game.
Yeah, for sure. It was a lot of fun to watch, and I'm sure it was a lot of fun to cast as well.
Yeah, very fun, very fun. But now, as we load into this game now, I would generally turn around and ask the chat at this point, who are you going to place your bets on? Do you think with this draft Mineski will win, or do you think Kingdom can take the edge with this one? And while I ask the chat, I'll also turn that question on you, Grandis. So you're a betting man. Who are you putting your money on, or specifically your cheese on?
Oh, I'm generally not a betting man, but as far as lineups are concerned, I think Mineski are going to be able to push down the towers a little bit more effectively than Kingdom. Kingdom don't have a great way to start the fights off. Theoretically, if they get a Blink Dagger on the Treant Protector, they can jump in that way. But other than that, they're just going to kind of hope that they win these team fights. And it's going to rely a lot on whether or not the arrows are going to connect from the Mirana. And without any setup, I don't think that they're going to be as reliable. I like Mineski's lineup just for being more stable. But if Kingdom are able to get off to a good start, they definitely could take out a win.
Well, if Kingdom can get off to a good start, yeah, that's the key thing. They need time for the Ember to be able to get his core items up, to be able to start cleaving with the all-important Sleight of Fist. But equally, they need to be getting kills on this Mirana. This Mirana just farming is not enough. She needs kills.
Yeah, for sure. Well, as far as the lineups for today, we are going to start out with a pause, but that will make it fairly easy to introduce the players. On the side of Mineski, they're playing on the Radiant, with Play Hard playing on the Shadow Shaman, 5593 playing on the Centaur Warner, Jesse Vash. What?
That's Oa. 5593 is Oa. They had the same names yesterday. They've changed their names around a little bit.
Excellent. And Jesse Vash is going to be playing on the Shadow Shaman with, oh dear, what's Razor's name?
Razor is actually, if I can remember here, Jehovan even. It's Jehovan on the Razor.
And, well, Jacko going to be playing on the Viper. Man, that makes it so difficult when they change those around.
You get used to it. You get used to it. We had the same thing yesterday over 2 games series with Mineski. So, we should be able to adapt. But flip side of the coin, however, for the Kingdom, we've got Draken on the Ember Spirit. We've got 2D on the Mirana, we have Smashy on the Ancient Apparition, Fixers on the Death Prophet, and finally, standing in for Kingdom, we have Star on that Treant Protector, and we're certainly looking for some early aggression off the back of a level 1 smoke.
Yeah, looking to exert some control over the enemy jungle. Don't think they'll catch anybody out unless the Razor just completely ignores the rest of his team and walks headlong into 5. But for now, they're probably just going to drop some wards. They have 2 observers on the Ancient Apparition, some sentries on the tree. So I'd expect them to block the pole camp, and it looks like they will. Also giving them some decent vision of support rotations, although not the best. For now, that's going to be it. They just smoke up and drop their ward, and they're going to be content with that.
Yep, just getting ward advantage in the jungle, giving them vision of A, the pull, and B, anyone rotating through the jungle is going to be such a key thing. But from where I stand, the lanes of Kingdom, if they're going to be putting this Ember up in the safe lane, and it seems they will, then they have the tri-lane aggressive Mirana and Fixers mid lane. The matchups are still going to favour Mineski here, because we consider the mid lane is going to be the Viper of Jacko. He's going to be going up against the Death Prophet, and Viper should win that matchup in all honesty. Then, on the flip side of that coin, for the safe lane, you have Oa on the Centaur Warrunner, and a Centaur up against a solo, potentially, and a solo melee to boot, will always be in favour of the Centaur Warrunner, because the Centaur will just put that first point into return, and then any harassment being thrown into the Centaur is punished. However, we do have the presence of both supports top lane now, at least for the moment.
Yeah, honestly, I'm not a huge fan of this rotation coming out from Kingdom. They're going to have the Chilling Touch, sure, to help zone out the Centaur, but then again, it's working with 2 other melee heroes, and currently they're just going to be running the pole, trying to deward it to the best of their ability, and they will be able to get it after dropping 2 sentries. But, I don't know, they committed a lot to that. At least they'll have that extra bit of experience, because I'm not sure they're going to be able to get kills on the Centaur, and at least for the first wave.
Play hard, rotating in on Fixers. However, Fixers was a little bit wise to it and managed to get safe. There was a rotation in, he had the Shadow Shaman hiding in the tree line the entire time, and I can't actually draw on the map at the point. But you get the idea.
Yeah, no, yeah, he definitely was looking for something, but Shadow Shaman at the early levels, especially, yeah, with only the point in his shackles, it's very hard to get in range for the
I'd completely agree, since any static link is going to force the Mirana to leap away, which is A, going to force the cooldown, and B, the mana expenditure by the Mirana. Sure, small amount of mana expenditure, but in that time, Jehovan will just start right-clicking, and you can see 2D force back. Sure, has the leap, doesn't want to use it, but that's 42 stolen damage, which basically means Jehovan has complete lane control of this at this point in time.
Yeah, Mirana with 4 damage cannot do anything as far as putting pressure or CSing, so she'll be able to get her experience, sure, but Mirana's not going to be able to get much out of this lane. I'd like to see her rotate early on, but with the heroes that they have in the other lanes, it's going to be hard to set up kills.
I'd completely agree, and it's all really about setting up kills. You're on about the Mirana side, yeah? Yeah, the Mirana will not be able to set up a single kill on her own. Sure, she could throw the potential arrow, maybe hit play hard, but there's no risk of play hard dying, not a chance. But the flip side of that coin, there is also absolutely no chance of Oa on the Centaur Warrunner to be able to get a pick off, surely. With Draken there, backed up by 2 supports and a Treant, I'll point out, he's not going to be able to get any kills, but we already see the Centaur has picked up a little bit in terms of CS as well, so he's been able to come forward and right-click a little bit at least.
He has plenty of regen to trade hits. He has 2 sets of tangos as well as a full salve, and presumably all of those tranquil boots. I don't see the Centaur really being zoned out of lane, although his Blink Dagger isn't going to be as fast as a hero that could back off into the jungle. He is going to be able to get it at a decent timing, and more importantly, once he gets his ultimate, they might be able to catch somebody off guard with just the ultimate into the Shackles coming out from the Shadow Shaman.
I'd completely agree. I mean, the Stampede into Shackles would be the initiation they need. It'll give them the ability to lock down, say, the Mirana, or say, the Death Prophet, and that will let either the Razor or the Viper waylay and finish off the hero. But equally, you were mentioning Blink Dagger timings for Oa here. I'm actually wondering how early he's going to be able to get his Blink Dagger, because as soon as we get the extra level or 2 into Smashy, he's going to be able to come online and force some initiation with potentially Cold Feet and the Leech Seed combination. I don't see really much potential for harassment with Chilling Touch in this one, because we have the threat, of course, of it's a double melee versus the Centaur, really. Double melee and a range, so Chilling Touch is going to be much less effective, as you accurately stated earlier. But equally, it's going to keep the Centaur hesitant to come forward in CS. And I've spoken to Solon a fair amount about Centaur, and generally we want to see the dagger come on between the 10 to 12 minute mark. Do you honestly think that's going to be attainable this game against that kind of tri-lane? And you also have to consider the Centaur does not have a ring of protection, so he's not going to have the ability to finish up his Tranquils so quickly either.
Yeah, I honestly don't think he will. I think a more realistic timing is more into 12 to 15 if he doesn't die. I don't know, it's all whether or not he's going to be able to make successful rotations around the map once he does get his level 6. I think that's really the timing that Centaur needs to hit if he wants to hope for a faster Blink Dagger. But as it stands, he isn't farming very well, and I don't see that he will be able to.
Well, hopefully we'll be able to continue soon. We've got an unfortunate disconnect coming out of Draken, and hopefully everything will be smooth. We've had a few power cuts today in the first series, and if it's the same problem, it should be online within a minute or 2.
Yeah. Well, as far as the mid matchup, one that we haven't touched on, Viper kind of expecting, or as expected, is dominating the Death Prophet in the CS department, 11-4 compared to the 5-0 of the Death Prophet. I don't see this really changing unless there's a support rotation, but an Ancient Apparition tree, especially a tree that didn't start out boots first, is going to be able to do little to nothing to put pressure onto Jacko here, and I don't know, Jacko's going to have the lane of his life, and for now, his supports are also going to be stacking up some camps, presumably.
Well, it's the benefit of Viper. Viper is one of the tankiest mid-heroes, for one. 2, he is the absolute king, undisputed king of orb walking. If he can get on target with Poison Attack, with Viper Strike, that target is not going to escape. And that's something to always keep in mind with the Viper, especially when you're against a Death Prophet. And what can the Death Prophet really do against the Viper? Throw a Quipstorm. Oh, she's just taken corrosive skin damage. She can silence the Viper. That's attained absolutely nothing, since Nether Toxin will still be applied. She can attempt to go on in with Exorcism. If she commits Exorcism to try to kill the Viper, it's arguably a waste of Exorcism, because they'll need that damage on the tower. It's a rough lane in my mind for a Death Prophet. Jacko should, as you mentioned, have the lane of his life, and without good rotations in, and this has to come from the Mirana, in all honesty. Without good rotations in from the Mirana, the Viper will just walk away from any kind of fight.
Yep. I think it's fair. I really like the Mineski lane setup, and I'm not sure there's really much the Kingdom are going to be able to do about it. Really, the loser as far as how these lanes have panned out is Jesse Vash on the Switch Doctor, currently sitting at level 1, and is just kind of reserved to sitting inside the jungle. Eventually, he might be able to farm this up with his Paralyzing Cask, but for now, it's not really going to cut it. I don't know. I expect him to just be stacking these up, and maybe he'll be able to find some experience somewhere, but with their pole camp being blocked, it's going to be difficult.
I can certainly see the main job of Jesse Vash in this game. It will be to stack these camps up, more importantly for A, helping the Centaur get that early dagger, because you can double edge down the camps fairly quickly. B, you can leave him for the Razor so he can get accelerated towards the Aghanims. You have quite a few other options, and apparently the issue might be his internet, so that could set us back some time in terms of this game.
Yeah, that definitely could. I don't know. It seems that there's always something wrong with these games, and in the end, there's nothing we can do about it. Yeah, we are casting from the ticket, which means we can rewind, but there's very little else that's going to benefit us with. So for now, we just wait until the Ember Spirit gets his internet back. Not much else to do.
Well, are there any other points you want to raise in this game regarding the draft, regarding the heroes on the matchup?
I don't know, it's 2 minutes in, there's not a whole lot else to talk about. We've touched on all of the lanes, and there's nothing too interesting as far as early item pickups are concerned. It's all pretty par for the course.
Well, in that case, considering this could be an extended pause for recovery of internet, I'm going to put a little bit of music on in the meantime for you guys on stream so you don't get too bored. But kick back and enjoy.
Your prayers are answered. I descend to walk among mortals. Don't take it badly if I look down on you. From where I sit, you all look like tiny insects. Time to play God. God's wrath. Oh, ye of little faith.
Right, now we're back underway with the reconnect. We should be good to go. So, with where we were saying before, you were favouring, I believe, the lineup from Mineski, at least for the foreseeable future. Yeah.
Yeah, I definitely think that that's how it's going to end up panning out. For now, it's going to be fairly passive, and I don't expect there to be any First Bloods unless we have an overstep by any single hero. It definitely could happen, but for now, we're just kind of waiting. Well, actually, we do have a support rotation coming out from Playhard as well as Jesse Vash. If they're able to line up these shackles, it could be a fairly easy kill on the Death Prophet, but for now, she's completely back and just bottle crowing away. And, well, they're going to rotate up towards top, where the Centaur is there, and they have enough damage if they catch out one of these supports, but...
Well, it's a level 2
We'll have to
Centaur,
see.
so he's going to do a good amount himself. I believe the double edge will deal 175 damage. Yes, it will. Make that 250 now. It's level 3 on the Centaur. So we could see the potential initiation here, and we do get the supports rating in as well. This is a horrible trap, but the Ember Chains do lock down the Centaur for a few seconds longer, so he doesn't get that swap off immediately. But now with the South ticking away, we see the potential rotation in, but First Blood goes the way of Star with one fierce right-click on that Centaur. Oh, sorry, on that Treant, but it'll be a Treant for a Centaur trade in the meantime, so it's a 2-for-1 in favour of Kingdom at this point, and now it's going to be a 3-for-1 if they can bring down Jesse Vash. 2 more right clicks could spell his doom, but with that Voodoo Restoration ticking away, it's certainly going to add up. Can he survive this one? Cast bouncing around, 1 more right click. He survives. He's going to get away from this one.
Apparently, yes. I don't know, in the end, that was a very awkward move coming up from the Centaur. He ended up tanking a lot of the spells coming up from Kingdom, and in the end, usually you don't see Chilling Touch being very effective on melee units, but when you do have 3 heroes, right-clicking with Chilling Touch, that just does so much damage, and it was underestimated a little bit by Mineski. The Centaur wasn't able to do anything as far as that initiation was concerned, and in the end, the support rotation was just an attempt to bailed the Centaur out of a very awkward situation that ended up failing, giving the First Blood the way of Kingdom. They got 1 return kill after the double edge coming up from the Centaur, but in the end, 2-for-1 plus the First Blood, big win for Kingdom.
I'd completely agree, and that does, of course, give Star his boots, so he's going to be able to come in and hit with that staggering 91 damage on that Treant, oh so easier. But it also does raise the question of what item build do you think we're going to see on the Treant in this game? Because we have seen some variation in the past.
Honestly, I think this is just going to be pretty standard coming up from the tree. He's probably going to be reserved to get as... Whoa, the Death Prophet actually kills the Viper in the mid lane. Looks like it was just an arrow that landed coming out from 2D, and, well, they had enough damage in the end of that. So good rotation coming out for the Mirana. I didn't think they'd get an arrow, but in the end, yeah, back to the tree. Just for a second, I think this is just going to be Arcane Boots Blink, but he won't have those for quite some time, as this support does not farm very fast.
I'd completely agree with that one. I mean, Arcane Blink will help him set up in terms of the initiation bar, but now, speaking of initiation, they're going to go into Draken, catches him out with 1 stomp, 2, but right clicks are being thrown into Oa at this point, and now comes the turnaround. Draken, however, cannot come back into this fight, not easily, and Star will clean it up. That staggeringly heavy-hitting punch from that Treant is just not to be underestimated. 91 damage from the tree, plus, I believe, 50? Yeah, extra 50 from the Chilling Touch.
Yep, just a mighty punch coming out from Star, and yet again, they underestimate the Chilling Touch. They aren't able to play aggressively on their own, but if you have the Centaur running into you, it's very easy to catch him out. They just slow him down and then start right-clicking away, and it just does too much damage. The Ember Spirit fell low, but in the end, he's going to be just fine. He has enough HP to sit in lane for now, and they've committed a lot of their support time up top where they could have been stacking. It has secured the Witch Doctor as level 3, which I suppose is nice. Yeah, we'll have to see how this is going to actually work out for Mineski, but as it stands, Kingdom are having a really great start in this top lane, but in mid and bottom, it's not looking too great, although they were able to get the kill on the Viper, and now mid's looking pretty even.
Yeah, the mid lane is a lot more even than I thought it would be, considering Jacko would generally have the advantage here, but you can see Star tries to come in, arrow's going to fly, doesn't connect onto Jacko, unfortunately, misses the skin by the skin of his teeth, but while this is going on, Centaur cleans up the top lane, the Ember goes down. And that's a pretty damn big kill going the way of Mineski.
Yeah, for sure. The Ember Spirit, the one that was benefiting a lot from those early kills, and well, without his supports there, they were doing other things. He was caught out alone, and
Arrow's going to connect onto Jacko in the mid lane, and Star just giving vision the entire time.
There you go. Well, in the end, Leech Seed was good enough setup for that arrow, and well, this Mirana's made a pretty big impact of herself over the last couple of minutes. Been involved in 2 kills, and well, if she's able to keep this up, the Mirana pick is definitely justified even without the setup, as they might go aggressively on the top. I think that the Centaur is going to be just fine. They're looking for the chains. They might be able to get them. They will, with the Icy Vortex as well as the Chilling Touch damage. They drop him to below half, but I think he's going to be able to just back off, and there you go.
This is one of the threats of a Centaur War Runner. He has such a staggeringly high strength gain. He has probably, if I recall correctly actually, he has the highest strength gain in the game at 3.8. I don't think any hero can actually beat that, not even the Treant Protect, who I believe is 3.4? No, 3.3.
Yeah.
From where we stand, the Mirana, we did say the Mirana would need to rotate around the map and get involved, get the arrows onto the Viper for the Viper to be even possible to kill. And she's proven that she can do that. It's 2 kills onto the Viper, which will put Jacko significantly further behind Fixers. And that's leaving Fixers time to get that early mechanism. Already having the Buckler, going to be looking for that Headdress next. And from Headdress, where do we go from there? Into the full mech, and from there, do we go see an Autos? Do we see a BKB? Where do you think we're going to see after a mechanism?
Let's see. After Mech, I think either Yules. Atos wouldn't be the worst either, although up against the Centaur, they'll be able to get out of there fairly easily. So I'm kind of leaning towards the Yules Scepter, being able to disjoint a Viper Strike and just sit inside the middle of the fight and continuously doing damage with the Exorcism, I think is just a little too strong to pass up, as well as the extra movement speed synergized as well with Witchcraft. But yeah, she will be the mechanism carrier for his team, and we'll have to see where he's actually going to go later on. As Mirana's looking for an arrow on mid, is it going to land on the Viper? It is not. And in the end, Jacko's going to be just fine without that arrow connecting.
Well, we speak about the mechanism for the Death Prophet. The mechanism for the Viper is equally well on the way. He's got the headdress. He's going to be looking for that buckler as soon as humanly possible. He's farming up well under his tower for the most part. So Jacko, he can recover in this game. Specifically, if early towers start to come down in favor of Mineski. They do, of course, have that Shadow Shaman. Level 4, not got the Serpent Wards yet, but the pushing power is in favor of Mineski, at least until we start to see Exorcism pushes come in. But the first tier 1 of the game will go down, and it's in favor of Mineski.
Yeah. The Mirana couldn't do very much as far as counter pushing is concerned there. She pulled off some of the creeps, but in the end, with Catapult and several range creeps at their disposal, they were able to take that fairly easily. Without any rotations, that's not going to happen. The Centaur is going to take a little bit of pressure up and top. They're diving in very heavily as they TP in. They might want to make it go.
With these TPs, it's going to be more than enough. Smash is going to be the main focus, but with Razor there, the Plasma Field, that's going to be more than enough. But Draken cleans up the Centaur in exchange, using all 3 of his remnants, however. That's his ability to escape. And sure, you've got Moonlight Shadow ticking. Where's the detection? There's no detection at the minute, but Star could be the one receiving the turnaround kill, especially when the Moonlight Shadow wears off, and that's a double kill going the way of Jehovan on that Razor.
Yeah, in the end, a lot of gold going the way of him, and, well, they dove that tower just a little bit too aggressively, I feel. Kingdom got caught out in a very awkward situation, ended up trading 2 for 1.
Yeah, which is honestly what Mineski need to start doing. Punishing whenever the aggression comes in. We've seen the Ember get very aggressive a few times. Speaking of aggression, Oa managing to find the Mirana, but we need to see Mineski punish any form of aggression here. They have the lineup that can do it oh so easily. Between Cask, between the Centaur and his Stomp, you've got to punish aggression. If you don't punish aggression, you're going to be at a disadvantage considering there is an Ember Spirit.
Yeah, for sure. Right now, they're just kind of waiting for the Centaur ultimate to come back off of cooldown 20 seconds, as well as play hard to pick up his level 6. He's about halfway there. Is up in top. We might have a go. But with the haste rune, it looks like the Razor's going to be no fine. No, the chains are going to land and connect from long range with the follow-up Leech Seed. The haste rune's already worn off, and it looks like they're going to be able to secure this kill. He leaps forward one more time, but with the damage still, it's too much for him to chase that down. And Woe with the Voodoo Restoration wants to make a turn with 147 damage. And while Smashy is going to get smashed inside the trees, there's just nothing he could do, and Static Link is a good spell.
True. Static Link is a very good spell if we want to go analytically on it. Let's take a proper look at the Static Link. It's level 3 at this point. It's going to be stealing 21 damage a second for 8 seconds. Now, you've got to remember the other nice thing about the Static Link, for those that do not know, it will still drain damage if the opponent hits 0. So it can add up quite horrifically, and we can see Jehovan using it to great effect here. Stops the chase coming in from the Ember, and now we see the turnaround. They brought down the AA, now they want to get the tier 1 top line, especially with these Mass Serpent Wards being commit. Living Armor, you won't stop the Mass Serpent Wards. And this tower should, if we don't see any rotation soon, go down in favor of Mineski here. And it's going to be something that it's going to be something that Kingdom need to be very wary of, especially considering 2 towers are now down and the siege is starting in terms of the mid tier 1 as well. You can see the Viper starting to build some momentum up, and I would not be surprised to see the rotation come in from the rest of Mineski and look to exert their pressure on the tier 1.
Yeah, for sure. Shadow Shaman wards are incredibly strong. There's very little the Kingdom have to defend against that. They can clean this up with the Mirana. They might catch eyes on the Treant Protector, but no long-range way to initiate as they go into Draken instead. The Static Link is going to come out. He will be able to jump away, and in the end, the Leech Seed goes the way of the Razor. I don't think they'll be able to chase him down if the arrow lands. Oh, maybe they will. Mineski is going to be able to get out of there alive. He throws out another Plasma Field, going to be chained yet again. That actually catches Shadow Shaman on top of that. Razor trying to chase away. The Immolation Aura coming out from the Ember Spirit will be enough to chase down that kill. Now with another Leech Seed going the way of Shadow Shaman, he's just going to be punched to death by the tree. In the end, 2 kills given the way of Kingdom, catching out on their retreat after that push.
Well, that was all the turnaround from the Mirana reinitiating with that Moonlight Shadow. If we had detection on the side of Mineski, that could have been a completely different fight. We have no dust, we have no sentries from my count, and I'm double checking right now and I see none. They need some form of detection if they're dealing with a Mirana. It's rule 1 of dealing with a Mirana. Speaking of dealing with Mirana, mid lane, Jacko eating the the repercussions of the push coming mid, and he's going to be forced out at least to a fair amount, but in comes Jehovan, trying to force this back. We do have a blink dagger available. Who was it that just picked up that blink? We saw a blink. Who got that blink? We saw it on Centaur. Centaur, yes. Speaking of Centaur, 2D, well, eats the first blink initiation of the game, and Owa showing what force he can do. And this is a 13-minute blink, slightly delayed from the usual times that we would see, but not too much so. And we're waiting for another initiation. Do we have the blink dagger available with a stun? Yes, we do. But can they find the Death Prophet? No. Fixer is going to be well enough away. And there's the rotation on that mid-tier one that I was talking about. Mass Serpent Wars commit. They want to bring this down, and they certainly can. But with a drum on the Ember Spirit now, he's going to start trying to have some kind of impact on this game. And Stampede being used as well, brings down Smash on the bottom lane, I guess.
Yeah, I don't know, it was just an easy blink of Somp, double edge, and then the Stampede for the little bit of extra damage. And, well, as they get the 2 tower as well in the mid lane, they type the kill score and come out another tower ahead. So looking good. Mineski are sitting pretty well as far as the graphs are concerned. A pretty significant gold advantage, about 5k. Experience not as great, but 1,000 still not too shabby. As down at bottom, they find out Mirana. She is going to leap away. Simultaneously, she gets stunned, but in the end, that's going to keep her safe. She goes through one of the trees with the Tango, and, well, that's going to be it.
Yeah, well, if 2D can continue to farm safely, and that's going to be very hard with, of course, that Blink Dagger online for the Centaur. If the Mirana can farm safely, she'll be able to get... what item would you hope for on the Mirana in this game? Because Lincoln's I don't feel is the right choice. Diff, no. Early BKB, maybe. Maelstrom... not going to do too much and would risk getting you killed to the corrosive skin if you end up getting yourself slowed off hitting the Viper.
For now, it looks like she's going to back off for drums and just go for the standard stats build on your Mirana. I wouldn't be surprised to see a Maelstrom, but after she goes for this, I think maybe BKB and then just goes straight up damage, maybe like a Daedalus. Could be a pretty solid choice, or maybe we see the Desolator coming up from the Mirana after that BKB.
I think that would be a wiser choice. And the only reason I don't think the Maelstrom should be a good item in the early game against this lineup, A, it doesn't give you anything in terms of health or survivability. B, and more importantly, it could get you killed if you end up getting the corrosive skin on you. You can get the turnaround from the Viper with that slow stacking up and the orb walks coming out.
That said, it would help her push out lanes a lot more effectively, so if she's going to go for more of a split push style, I think it would be better, but if she wants to go into these 5-on-5 engagements, BKB is definitely the smarter choice as well. They drop the surfboards on the tier 2 tower. Draken is looking to initiate. He has several chains, or spirits back as you get the chains onto 2. They get an arrow,
Viper
it's going to land on...
arrow. Now you get the Ice Blast coming in, the complete turnaround. Jehovan gets a double plasma field, but only manages to bring down the Treant in time, and now we could have the potential for a siege. Do we have any mechanism available for any of these teams? We have Jacko with the mech ready for Mineski, and they could look to turn around and fight this one. And in comes an arrow from the side, does impact on Jehovan, and they will manage to bring down the Razor off the back of this, but a double hoof stomp delays that at least for a few seconds, and that's 1 kill off the back of the other strike, make that 2 with Jacko finding the kill with the ability to orb walk in. Now Draken being the focus here, does he have any spirits? Yes, he does, and he should be safe from this one, but the AA forced out.
Yeah, in the end, really good jump-ins from the Centaur. His first hoof stomp was on 3, and his secondary one was on 2. Unfortunate that they lost the Razor. The mechanism coming out from Kingdom really helped them get through the first barrage of initiations, but in the end, tier 2 tower also going their favor and coming out 2 kills ahead. Mineski should be pretty happy with how that last engage went, and, well, as soon as they have surfboards back up, it's rinse and repeat, go down for another tier 2.
Well, if they can start exerting their pressure and getting the tier 2s down before the push can come online from the Kingdom, specifically the Death Prophet with the Exorcism, that's going to add up so heavily in favour of the lineup of Mineski. And we can see this on the graph right now. That's a 7,500 gold lead. The snowball is rolling. Sure, 2,000 experience lead, but you're grouping up so much, that's where the differential comes in. And we can see also on the net worth, Razor and Viper, top of the board. Death Prophet falling behind by at least 2,000 gold. It's not a pleasant game to be fixers in this one.
Yeah, for sure. I think the bigger issue is that nobody else is topping the Death Prophet. I think at this point, Death Prophet would be okay if she just had the mechanism and the Yule's pieces, but there's nobody to really compete up against the farm that Mineski has. Currently, they have an already completed Aghanim Scepter on the Razor with some stat items on top of it, which just did work on that tower, and Centaur is Blink Dagger and now almost a 4-staff completed. He has pretty much all of the tools that he wants, and similar for the Viper, he's going to get very close to his Ags after the Mac.
Completely agreed, and now you've got all of these big items coming online. If they can get these final tier 2s down, could we see potentially a very early high ground into Rex?
I definitely think it's an option, but for now, it's probably safer just to go systematically, take these tier 2 towers out one by one, and propel that lead a little bit more before you go for high ground, because as it stands, if you go high ground, you're asking to get caught out by an arrow, potentially an overgrowth, big ancient apparition ultimate. Although it's not the greatest high ground defense, they still could get caught out.
It all comes down to if they can have the positioning and not get caught. But now we see another tier 2 push. In comes an arrow, going to connect onto Jehovan, and now do we see the initiation? You've got damage coming in from Draken, but that's not enough on its own. And now the Eye of Storm's coming in with the Aghanims, of course. This is going to start shredding these towers. Tier 2 going to fall very easily, and 2D cannot hold this, nor can Draken. We got Ice Blast flying through as well, but Ice Blast does effectively nothing to this lineup at Mineski at this point. We do get a bit of a tower exchange though, the tower pressure being thrown in by Smashy and of course by Fixers trying to use the exorcism to best effect, but there is no space really for the Death Prophet to get these 3 towers that she wants. Equally though, in comes the Stampede from Oa, however, countering, we get the Overgrowth to try to stop this and try to hold up this level of aggression, but Viper Strike drops onto Star and he will take a fall this way, and Death Ward up on the high ground, doing good damage. 2D could potentially go down to that, but the Moonlight Shadow is covering them, at least their escape. They'll lose the Ancient Apparition for the Centaur in exchange, but Arrow's going to fly. Do we see the mass TP out? Yes, we do. Mineski do not want anything more to do with this top lane. Bot lane even.
Yeah. I don't know, mid-tier 1 tower did go the way of the exorcism, and, well, without that exorcism damage, Kingdom couldn't defend against the tier 2 towers, so although they got something out of it, their map control is just crumbling out from under their feet. They only have 1 remaining tier 2 tower, and after that falls, Mineski can fairly easily go high ground. I think they're just waiting for the completed Ags on the Viper and potentially a BKB on this Razor. He's getting pretty close to that one as well.
Well, all it'll take is a few more items in all honesty. Just that BKB, just the Ags, and they have the potential to high ground very early, especially if they get the Viper Strike on the Ember Spirit. That will slow him down so heavily that the Fire Remnants will travel so slowly that they won't be an impact in this game, per se. But Razor does need to be careful. He could walk down into the smoked lineup of Kingdom at this point. And Kingdom want to try to find something, and they do realise the Ancients are being stacked from this, but who do they initiate on? They'll use the Yules, and they're trying to commit to the Centaur here, but in comes Smashy with that AI Ice Blast, doesn't connect on anyone because the 4-staff out from Oa, but now Overgrowth commit, Viper Strike going to be thrown on Star, and now we get the initiation. Death Ward going to tick in. With no Moonlight Shadow this time, who can save them? Killing spree for Jacko. Viper trying to get some extra kills here. Going to try to go for Fixers, but he's so damn quick on the Death Prophet, he should be well enough and safe. Then again, Stomp doesn't connect, and Fixers should be able to turn around onto Oa here. And Oa does take a good amount of damage, but equally though, Play Hard does hex up Fixers and force him out for a little bit longer. So we get a 2-for-0 trade, however, in favour of Mineski at the end of this little scrap.
Yeah, in the end, it kind of was a scrap. They were trying to chase down those last couple of kills and just didn't happen. There was several good arrows. They cut out the Viper at the very end, securing Death Prophet's retreat. Not sure if we ever touched on it, but Playhard's actually looking pretty farmed, comparable to that of the Ember Spirit. He has a Blink Dagger as well as 1,200 gold on top of his Arcane Boots. Yeah, I don't know, we haven't seen that before, but the Blink Hex initiation almost caught them an extra kill. He might take down to this, I don't think so. No, that's only a level 1 and no Ags, yeah. So in the end, probably just going to annoy Ancient Apparition with the Corrosive Skin tick.
Well, in comes the arrows. They're trying to land something from the Mirana, but it's very rough here to be 2D. He is so fragile in these pushes and in these fights. You consider he's got a drum, he's got 1,000 health. You've got a massive burst combo coming out of Oa, and then you've got Shock, you've got Plasma Field, you've got a lot of more damage on the side of Mineski than you do on Kingdom at this point. Kingdom need time, and Mineski just are not giving them time. They're knocking on their racks already. The final tier 2 on the side of the map for Mineski, well, for Kingdom in favour of Mineski is down, and you've got some counter push trying to come out from the Death Prophet as well as the Ember Spirit, but it's a tier 1 for a tier 2, and you've lost all of your tier 2s now. It's only a matter of time till Mineski turn their attention to Roshan, in my mind.
Yeah, I think all they need to do is push out these side lanes, and once they get Roshan, Witch Doctor is going to be dangerously close to the Aghanim Scepter, and if he gets an ultimate like the last couple ones, where he's channeling it like on the high ground where they can't actually reach him, and end up canceling that, that could be ridiculous as far as how much damage that could do. Razor has his complete BKB, Viper has his Aghanims. Yeah, I think at this point, Mineski have what they need in order to push high ground for Kingdom. And, well, we'll have to see how they're going to go about doing it. For now, we have an Invis on the Centaur, potentially looking at the Ember Spirit. Does he have enough follow-up? Ember, I don't see any remnants around the map, but it's a very low probability kill anyway. So for now, Centaur isn't going to go for it. Maybe if they have the Blink Hex initiation from the Shadow Shaman, they could have gone, but Ember Spirit's already too far back.
Oh, it actually walked in range of a Sentry Ward there. That's why there was a backup from the Ember.
There we go.
But in the meantime, we do get a push on that top lane. They're going to be able to bring down that tier 1 with pretty much no contest, but we're going to need to see some TP reactions to defend us. Roshan is the order of business here for Mineski. If they can kill Roshan and then high ground, this could be all over for Kingdom. But Ice Blasters come in. They realize something's amiss here. And I don't think the Radiant side from Mineski will be able to kill Roshan in time before we see any kind of rotation. But then again, it seems we'll instead see Tier 2 push coming from Kingdom. They favour the tower more than Roshan at this point. And with the Mass Serpent Wards committed, do they really want to fight Roshan? I don't think they do.
Yeah, and well, with the Serpent Wards also committed, they won't be able to transition as they jump on the high ground. They blow up the Ember Spirit with the Witch Doctor ultimate channeling. Very easy pickoff, so all said and done, they're not going to be too sad about how that went, but their tier 3 tower is under pretty heavy siege. They catch Mirana out, and now TP back in the base. Mirana looked like she was going for a leap steal, but in the end didn't happen. They get a Blink Hex on to smash you with follow Viper Strike. The Living Armor isn't going to save you here as he's shackled in place while the Viper starts right-clicking him away, and well, Smashy throws out his ultimate with his dying breath, but in the end, going to give a double kill the way of Jacko.
Oh, still, that's 3 kills and a Roshan versus nothing and 2 towers. That's quite the advantage there in my mind for Mineski, and now we get the potential turnaround. They want to try to get something with the Razor here. BKB's being forced. The Static Link didn't steal anything, and he's not going to get much off the back of this in my mind. He used the Eye of the Storm as well, and he just cannot get any damage onto this tier 3 tower at this point. Equally though, we do have Oa nearby, and he could be the deciding force in getting a kill here with this Eye of the Storm. But I think they're just going to back away. They don't want to risk this.
Yeah, that was your 10-second BKB on the Razor used for pretty much nothing, so I think Mineski are just going to back off and wait until they have that available again to where they can siege high ground. I think they can play this fairly defensively. The items are just not coming out for Kingdom to make them scary. We're still waiting on Ember Spirit to pick himself up at Battle Fury at 25 minutes. Even if he gets the one Battle Fury, his damage isn't going to be that significant unless they catch out all of Mineski grouped up very heavily, and I don't know, even then, it's nothing compared to like a Daedalus on top of that, which is really what you want your Ember Spirit to be thinking about at this point in the game. And while Mirana also looking pretty poor, looks like she's going towards, I don't know, I'm going to assume this is a Maelstrom, although BKB or Desolator I would prefer.
I would think it'll be the Maelstrom, unfortunately. He needs the damage to try to force back these lanes. As much as I want to say he needs a BKB, I will use the term Draskell tends to use a fair amount. BKB in this game is a game-losing item. Sure, it'll give you the survivability, but it does not give you anything in terms of damage or push power. And that's what they need in this game to try to force out Mineski.
They might also be finding a pick-off. No, blink away from the Shadow Shaman. He'll be just fine. So in the end, that's going to be it, as Razor's pushing out mid and just farming up. Mineski are taking this slow and steady, and there's no real reason not to. As soon as they find a pick-off, that's really when they have their opening. But for now, they're just going to wait.
Well, they can wait. They have the luxury of waiting at this point. They can wait for the next set of items to come up, and really, it's Kingdom who really can't afford to wait. If Kingdom get given space, they're fine. If Kingdom get pressured, they cannot afford to wait to take the team fights because they'll just lose their tier 3s, they'll lose their racks. And it's another Ancient stack this time being picked up by Mineski, and they've got the advantage going into the tier 3s at this point. Do we just see the barrel down mid lane right now? Do they pull the trigger on that one?
I don't know, it's all a matter of time until Mineski want to make their move, and for now it's going to be a smoke rotation, trying to catch somebody out outside of the base, but currently Kingdom are completely bottled up. However, if somebody goes to farm one of these lanes, it could be disastrous. For now, Razor's showing, and I don't think they will. Looks like it is just going to be barrel down mid.
Well, they have the Aegis for another 3 minutes. They have every item they could possibly want. What could stop them? They don't have a cleave yet onto Draken. They have, sure, 4 levels up in Silence for Fixes. He has the range, he has the level of damage with the level 2 Exorcism, but I'm not sure if that's enough at this point, because in comes the Mass Serpent Wards, in comes the Razor with the Eye of the Storm, and the Viper onto the high ground. This could be everything they need, and they're going to try to bring down some of the Serpent Wards, but Ice Blast to connect only catches onto Jacko and the Viper, and all of the wards being cleaned up fairly quickly. Going to remove a lot of the power. They didn't commit to the tower like I thought they might. But then again...
Well, they forced FN Star, and they'll follow up with the Hoof Stomp. They don't have the damage, this double edge doesn't come through, but the Plasma Field eventually brings him down. The Witch Doctor ultimate is being channeled, but with the Eul Scepter on the Death Prophet, she's not taking that much damage. In the end, she will be brought down. Her ultimate just not standing there. The tier 3 tower is still up, but the Viper is completely zoning out. Hasn't lost his Aegis just yet. Spamming out those Viper strikes to his heart's content as they blow up Smashy with the double edge. And now Draken. He's going to be able to get the Aegis off of the Viper, which is all fine and good, but this Viper is going to come back with the vengeance. Will he be left for dead by his team? For now, he's going to be leeching it up and trying to man fight. He doesn't have any backup for now, and it looks like Jacko is just going to be left inside the base. The arrow to fly is going to land on the Viper, body blocked in by 3 heroes, and I don't know, a very interesting move from Mineski. I thought they could have bailed him out there.
I would agree. I thought they could have bailed him out, but equally I would say if they fully committed to the tier 3, if they had a fully went for that tier 3 and all went uphill, they could potentially have fought that one and took that. But it seems like we're going to get someone caught out on the back foot of the fight, trying to escape. Down goes the Shadow Shaman to the Mirana's arrow.
Yeah, I don't know, beautiful setup coming up from the Eul Scepter. Even if the arrow didn't line up, the haste rune was purged off by the Eul, so they would have been able to chase him down anyway. But I don't know, Duty was able to line that one up, and they catch one more out in their retreat. So for now, Kingdom defend their high ground.
Well, I will say this much, Jesse Vash on that Witch Doctor has that Aghanim Scepter as well. And he's had that for, by the looks of things, some time.
Yeah. I don't know, the last fight, he was able to channel it for a long time, but in the end, the only hero that was in range was the Death Prophet, and she ended up Eulsing herself up, so it didn't do that much in the team fight, although it was enough damage to force Kingdom back, at least in the early portions.
Meantime, we do get a Stampede being popped, this time by the Sunday. He's looking for Smashy, and Smashy gets smashed.
As an HF version, not much that you can do there. They might be able to chase down the Centaur here. The Eul Scepter up in the air. The Force Staff away. The arrow is actually going to land because of the Force Staff, and now caught between 4 enemy heroes. Looks like he's going to die in the Courier. They're going for it. Where's the leap? It's going to die.
So that's a Courier that was worth 1,650 gold. I want to know what was on that Courier, but I'm not sure.
Oblivion.
Yep, it was an Oblivion. So he's looking for either a refresher. That sure was a refresher on someone. Who was that on?
Razor. That's his completed refresher that he's not going to have for almost 3 minutes. That's huge.
That is huge. He's not going to have that till 32:30, and well, that gives Kingdom a little bit of leeway in terms of time, but what can they acquire in that time? They need some other objective off the back of that. They've got the Battle Fury, they need crit. Draken's only 500 away from that. We look at Star, he's got Arcanes, he doesn't have a Blink yet for another 200 gold. That's going to be the big item for him. 2D, got that Maelstrom, but now, right now, he needs more damage or survivability at this point. And either BKB or Daedalus, after getting that Maelstrom, are a viable option.
Yeah, I don't know, Mirana's kind of in that awkward position right now. As a hero, Mirana doesn't carry that well unless she's an item ahead of the enemy team, and right now she's an item behind. So she kind of needs 2 items to really become fully relevant, and for now, anything that she can offer for her team is nice, but really she's there for the arrow and the ultimate.
I'd completely agree, and she is effectively a fragile kitten right now in comparison to some Miranas that we've seen in the past that have that fierce right-click and that threat in the game. But this is the point we stand at, where Mineski, they need to get a tier 3, they need to break the base. Every time Kingdom repels them, Kingdom can fight their way back in. But it's still a 12,000 gold lead that Mineski need to fight past. Flip on top of that, the 12,000 experience lead, and suddenly it's a very tall order for Kingdom. But if they can hold their base, it's a doable tall order.
Yeah, for now, that last pickoff on the Courier as well as the Centaur bought them some time. They need to do that a couple more times. They need to have time so this Ember Spirit can get his farm, so that he can become a really potent right-clicking threat, so that the initiation comes up from the trees, so that Death Prophet is able to tank on the front lines while her ultimate does damage. In the last couple of fights, she's just died too quickly. She needs, presumably, like a BKB, maybe even Heart, and even then, she just needs more, and that's kind of what Kingdom are looking at right now. They need more time.
Well, I'm thinking for fixes here, we're going to be looking for a straight BKB. It's honestly the only thing that makes sense here, because if he wants the Reaver, he'll go buy it now. A straight BKB would give him that survivability, it would give him the ability to tank up a little bit more, but you've still got to then worry about the physical damage of the Death Ward, the damage coming through from that Razor as well. The Eye of the Storm cares not for the BKB, but you have to also keep in mind the fact here that... what's the words I'm looking for? That last game drained me so much. What's the words I'm looking for here? Help me out.
Ooh, I have no idea. Death Prophet.
I completely lost my train of thought.
I don't know, in the end, Death Prophet BKB would be really nice, and eventually she'll probably have enough gold to buy it, but for now, we're just kind of waiting. She might be forced to stay for buyback, which would be unfortunate, but for now, Courier's back online, and, well, Razor has himself the complete refresher as well as a plate mail. On top of that, we have a gem from Mineski wanting to seize all the map control they can, and, well, it's go time. Let's see how the initiation is going to break out. I'd like to see him just fully commit. Pop the refresher ultimate on the Eye of the Storm. Maybe not the second one instantly, so that you can have the double BKB time, which is going to be very nice for the Razor. Just stand up there and tank. But for now, it looks like it's time to push now that they have all of their tools back.
That was what I was going to say. Is the BKB enough in terms of capacity and survivability for the Death Prophet at this point when you consider all of that physical damage?
I would be inclined to say no, but we'll have to see in this next engagement.
Well, it's going to be the tier 3 on the top lane, and you've got the siege coming in as well as an arrow landing onto Jacko, and this could be the fight they're looking for. AA throws the Ice Blast, but in comes Star, hits the Overgrowth, everything going wrong, but in comes the Deathwood. It's going to obliterate the tree, and now we have Jehovan trying to chew apart the rest of the lineup. Does some good damage. The double Eye of the Storm is up, but he can't get that onto the tower at this point. The arrow's going to fly, will not impact the BKB being used. Now Fixes will fall to the Razor. Equally so, Draken forced back, and it's going to be a tier 3 at this rate. The Mass Serpent Ward is still down. The Fortification wears off, and Viper will clean up Smashy once more. But tier 3 is falling. Buyback comes out from the Death Prophet. She doesn't have Exorcism though for 80 seconds. Another arrow comes in long range. And the melee racks going down. Range racks will be next. Stomp comes through onto Fixes. The damage is there. They turn around. But Viper can't stay on target. Not when the threat of Draken is still hurling a not small amount of damage that way through the Sleight of Fist. But first racks fall. Draken being forced back. But he cannot escape the Orb-Walking Viper at this point, or can he? He just gets away far enough, but now we get the turnaround. The arrow does land onto Jacko, as well as the Leech Seed, but melee racks are down, range racks are down, everyone needs to start falling back, and Jacko wants to get the hell out of dodge now. They've got their objective, they need to now get out alive.
Well, we'll be able to do so with the Leech Seed on the Viper. He's trying to TP out, but the chains are going to come through. In the meantime, Center jumps in. He runs into an arrow, and it looks like he's going to get caught out as well. 2 kills on the retreat coming the way of Kingdom, but not enough to really warrant how that last fight went. They lost their barracks, and at this point in the game, that's really hard to deal with. And, well, Mineski, I thought they'd be repelled there, but in the end, the Voodoo Restoration coming out from the Witch Doctor, sustaining that push so well. And they also had the mechanism on top of that. There was very little that Kingdom could do to actually get them out of the base. And it cost them dearly. Let's see if they're going to be able to hold on to their next racks.
Well, if they can hold on to the next racks, that's going to be the question. This is a very uphill battle now for Kingdom, and we can see that in the net worth of the Viper and the Razor. Better yet, we can see that on the graph. That's a 15,000 gold lead and a 14,000 experience lead. When I say tall orders, that's near mountain level of tall order.
Yeah, honestly, right now, I just don't see it unless Mineski consistently mess up their initiations and throw their bodies up at Kingdom. But if they go the way that they have been for the last couple of minutes of this game, just very systematic about it, and go up high ground, I don't really see it happening for Razor. His next item, instead of the Assault Cuirass, is going to be the Shiva's Guard. It's going to allow him to have more mana to spam out his spells and make that refresher a little bit easier to utilize. As well as having the double Shiva's Guard, it's going to give them a lot more AoE damage. At this point, I don't think it really matters what Razor buys, as long as it's going to, I don't know,
help him tank up.
Help him tank up. Yeah, there we go. That's what I was looking for. The extra armor from Shiva.
It's Shiva's. I'm thinking we could see. I would most likely say a heart next, just so he can stand on that front line and just be that big beefy threat that he is. Especially when the Eye of the Storm's up. The longer the Eye of the Storm is up, the better. Then again, with this final slot, he could look to fill that with an Aegis. I mean, big man is alive here, and if you get the Aegis onto the Razor, then let's assume your Razor dies while double Eye of the Storm is up. That Eye of the Storm doesn't get stopped. That will continue while the Aegis respawn is happening. It's a mechanic that not a lot of people know, and it's something not to be underestimated.
Especially if you die while you're sitting on the high ground, it could completely zone out, especially the supports coming up from Kingdom. They just can't tank that damage, and really, nobody can. Mirana, Death Prophet, and Ember Spirit are not immune to that, and for now, it's just goes straight up high ground from Mineski. They feel they don't need the Aegis, and while they jump in, drop the surfboards on the high ground. They're going to start being cleaned up by the Ancient Apparition Death Prophet, and, well, they jump in with BKB, the Shiva's Guard going pop by, the Razor, just completely ripping the Ancient Apparition to shreds. The second Shiva's Guard is going to come out, as well as the second Eye of the Storm, and just look at that physical damage going the way of the Death Prophet, shackled up, and they're all inside the base. Double kill for the Razor, as now the Tree and Protector are going to be completely brought back to the well, and they're just running all over Kingdom. In the end, GG called out.
Indeed, that is a dominating team fight right there coming out of Mineski, and that's the threat of a fully farmed late game Razor. But of course, ladies and gentlemen, this is a JDL Season 3 game. This isn't a best of one, it's a best of two. We've got another matchup between these two teams coming up right next.
Yeah, so see you soon. GG to both teams, and well, we should get into the lobby properly this time instead of having to cast off the ticket. But thanks for tuning in.